She said she would love to hear more of your stories, Bob.
Oh, good. Give me a call, Linda.
He won't stop
We'll
talking.
have his number here.
Just write Bob, whole number. Welcome to Behind the Glass.
Art therapy
Our mission is to share the creative power of how art
is more than just for looking at.
With every brushstroke and friend along the way, come with us as we go behind the glass.
We have Bob Hall here today in studio.
I'm thrilled.
So our guest is known for a lot of different properties from DC, Marvel, and Valiant. One of my favorite things that Bob has worked on was he did a couple covers for G.I. Joe. That's just my own personal fan favorite because it's one of my favorite properties. But he also did a lot of amazing things for Shadow Man, which we'll bring up. He did a comic book. It was a what if book where Spider-Man, it was a team-up book. Where Spider-Man teamed up with the not ready for primetime players.
Which, for those of you who don't know, that now you call it SNL.
Saturday Night Live. So Bob has some fun stories about that. Today's prompt, we're going to be drawing myself as a unicorn centaur. So we even have, I've got a little onesie here. So you guys, if you want, we made a little Inspirato.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought it was a uniform centaur. What can I say?
You put me in a uniform.
That's right.
So the uniform is unicorn.
Unicorn.
Use whatever you want. If you want to make mosaic, that'd be dope, actually. Please make a unicorn mosaic of me as a centaur. Unicorn? Okay, if somebody makes that, I swear I would put that as a
Archaeologists will find it in 500 years and say, I wonder.
And they'll be like, oh my gosh, another image of Nathaniel Hamill. Even if it's writing a ridiculous poem about how I'm a unicorn samurai. Oh, a unicorn centaur, not
I
samurai.
would love that.
Wait a minute, you know.
I would recite it.
Never mind.
Don't steal my ideas.
I kind of like that. I'm going to throw that in.
TM. Nah. We always start the questions out with a sneeze.
Oh, yeah.
So, Bob, when you're about to sneeze,
No, the moment.
the moment that you're about to sneeze, you go, like you're just, it's so right there, but there's actually no name for that we have found.
That moment of like, you feel it coming and you're like, ah.
You want to sneeze, but you can't
Sneeze
sneeze,
build
it's
up.
like right there, and then it builds up, and then you...
It's a SNEEZERGAM.
It's a what?
A SNEEZERGAM.
A SNEEZERGAM. Holy
It's the build-up.
Yeah. You get ready, and you finally do it. Sounds like life, doesn't it? Or other things?
That is a SNEEZERGAM?
Thank you. You can. I got that copy written already. So
Yeah,
He's already been sketching. He started
Bob's
before,
like,
and it's going awesome so far. Let's see.
he's been at it
Where
for
do I
like
hold this?
a good 10, 15
Which way do
we
minutes.
I
have the over camera.
Oh, over camera.
There we go. Yes, he's been working hard. It's just coming out of the air like magic.
I'm clearly super shredded. I don't have like an inch of fat on my body ever.
Yeah, obviously.
That's in the drawing,
It's a
right?
well-known fact.
Well-known fact. Well, it's...
Oh, you're right. I'm going to put more of a paunch on this centaur there. Yeah.
Dick. I knew I did it to myself.
Yeah.
He really is.
You made me do it.
You know what? My centaurs are going to be defeating? The Bob Hall. I'm going to create the Bob Hall character.
And what does that look like? Just
What does the Bob Hall character look like?
what's his pose? What is his...
Honestly, I bet you the Bob Hall
Go-to.
character would be a lot like this. Like a giant sentinel that just goes around eating planets.
I'll practice. I hunger.
Yeah.
No.
Like, he's like...
Which, by the way, it's getting late. I am hungry, so let's get on with this.
Yes, sir. Who would fight in the win match?
I'm gonna do that one. First creative.
I don't know. We don't have time. Who fight wins Hulk smash against Superman or Phoenix? Maybe Manhattan. What was your first creative professional goal, and did you accomplish it?
I was going to be a director on Broadway, and I did not accomplish that. But
Off-Broadway.
I came close. I did some off-Broadway and a lot of regional theater, and started the Shakespeare Festival, and did a bunch of stuff like that.
You've been a big component with the art community here in Nebraska. You have a lot of friends and fans that are well-known artists here in Nebraska. A lot of people truly respect what you have accomplished. We love you, Bob.
Oh, thank you.
There's a lot. I just did a quick search on you, and there's a long list. It's pretty interesting to read through all the stuff that he's done.
Well, you just sit there and do the math. I'm just going to draw here.
Me too. We'll just let.
I need someone to reach out and tell me what kind of weapon.
Nate needs a weapon. Someone help, please.
Centaur
Otherwise, I'm gonna give him like something real lame, like a Q-tip, and we don't want that.
It's a Q-tip. It's
giant
a
Q-tip.
You know what? No one responded, so it's a Q-tip. It's a
giant
super
Used
juicy.
Q-tip.
Who is the most powerful character that you've worked on in the sci-fi fantasy genre that you've worked in?
Oh, gee.
Like if you can look back and you're like, this character is hands down the most powerful character.
I've never drawn Popeye, so I got to go on from there.
He actually is the most powerful.
Yeah.
Because of his
And forearms. He's got the best forearms in comics.
They're unbeatable.
Yeah, unbeatable. But for real, only in commissions I've drawn Galactus a couple of times. He's probably the most powerful character in the Marvel Universe. Could have eaten Thanos in a minute.
Snap your fingers, I dare you.
Yeah. Why in that movie didn't they just cut his hand off? I don't understand. I never go for the head, cut his goddamn hand off. The movie's
It was
over.
right there.
Problem solved. I never get that. But
Snap now. So when you worked on Shadow Man,
Yeah.
you came into that. You want to tell the story? I'd love for you to tell the story.
Oh, okay. So Jim Shooter started Valiant, and I had worked a lot with Jim at Marvel, and I wasn't getting any work from Marvel right then, which is another story. But so I called Jim up. He'd always said, call me when you need work, and I had expected him to ask me to draw stuff, but he'd seen plays that I'd written and said, no, I want you to write. And I guess I needed somebody to give me permission to write comic books. I had never written a comic book, although with the Marvel method, you were strongly involved in the plotting, etc. So he said, well, come on over and I need writers, and why don't you pick one of these books? And I picked Shadow Man because it was set in New Orleans, which I thought would be nicely tucked away in the Valiant universe, and I wouldn't have to deal that much with the other characters that I didn't know right then. But also it was a book that seemingly was sort of failing. Nobody had a handle on what it really was about. And now I don't mean plots. I mean, you can always come up with plots, but what is the book about? It just wasn't there, and there were like 6 issues, and I think 3 different artists and 2 different writers, and the last one nobody even claimed writing it. It was
Hot potato.
number 6 was done by I think Shooter got credit for it, and Steve Ditko drew it, and I got to do the dialogue. That was my first thing before I could start on my plots. So, but anyway, I decided that if it was not working, then I either would be an awfully good company if I couldn't get it to work, and I would look pretty good if I could get it to work, which I did. Part of the deal with the powers and stuff was I got really tired. I'd gotten really tired by this time. If somebody achieves a power and they immediately go out someplace and buy the proper lycra uniform, and this was a little early for Amazon, so you couldn't go to Amazon. So I said, what? And so they had put him in a blue suit that looked like he was wearing Dr. Denton's. Didn't anyone know what those are? Those were like pajamas that had boots on them, little booties on them.
Yeah.
He looked just stupid. And so I got rid of that.
So I do notice that like he looked pretty metal, like rock and roll.
Yeah, he was kind of metal.
So
and he was like a even that was kind of fun because he was a sax player. That was a profession, and I figured he played jazz. Yeah, but if he was Shadow Man and played it, it became very weird metal, endless solos, and so that was kind of fun. And I figured he doesn't know what his powers are. They change a lot, and they're growing, and he hasn't figured out how to utilize them. And that was the fun of the book.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, the book was called Shadow Man, but it was really about this guy, Jack Boniface, something had happened to him, and he was trying to figure it out. And sometimes he was happy, sometimes he tried swinging from a line and would hum the Batman song, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then go
everything.
and then crash into a billboard, because that's logically what would happen if you actually started trying to swing from buildings. And, you know, it was just a lot of fun to do.
You really got to just create.
Yeah, I got to reboot him completely,
Yeah.
and that was fun.
It gave you a fan base that you didn't really expect. The Valiant fan base is really intense. They're really adamant about, like, especially the purchase of original artwork. I found out Bob still had this page. It was the last from that era. He didn't want to get rid of it, but he said he would put it in his will. So I threatened to throw him out of my car, because we were going like 85 back from Colorado. He said, okay, don't do that. I said, fine. But
I've heard this story before.
he actually, so I came to him with, I think it was $350. He said he wanted for the page. And that was a great deal for me. Trust me. This is Conan gets stabbed, or stabs Captain America in this page. It's the page that you find when you look it up on the internet. I love this page. So, ooh, those are beautiful. So finally was able to acquire this page from Bob. Even though I approached him with $350, he said, I was thinking maybe $450. So I came back with $500, thinking that I was going to one-up him. He goes, maybe $600. And I was like, so
Played yourself.
he played, yeah, every time. I should have brought $1 million, because honestly, sooner or later he would have been like, I thought this much. Well, so Bob hits me up. He needed help teaching a class. So I told him I would help him out on the condition that I get the page. He gave it to me. But I do remember the conversation that we had when you told me that you put it in your will. You told me, but if I put it in my will, will you shut the up? That's what you said to me. And I said, yes.
Sounds about right.
But he lied.
He lied, and here we are.
Talking.
Yeah, no. I knew for a fact that I wasn't going to.
It's a great page. If it happened to have brought it along so you could actually see it, it would be a much better story.
I was so sad. I
But
actually
we
wanted to
had-
hang it up behind. I will
Podcast
actually.
fail.
It's in my. It's something I stare at. It's like it's my thing every day.
Can't
It's my
take
thing.
it out of its religious spot.
So I didn't make like a totem or some
There's
kind of
candles
weird.
around it.
Okay, there is candles, but that's not the point. There's not like weird skulls like in pictures around. Okay, there is that. Okay, maybe I made a shrine. When he worked on the Spider-Man crossover with the Not Ready for Primetime Players, which is the Saturday Night Live cast, he has a really fun story about his interactions with actually the process of making this book. So if you have a few moments, Bob, I would love to hear this particular story.
At that point, I was an editor at Marvel, and Jim had just taken over as editor-in-chief.
Jim Shooter.
He had realized that Marvel had grown too big to have one editor, which is what they had, and they were going through this time when they had what they called writer-editors, meaning that the most popular writers like Mark Wolfman and Len Wein and Roy Thomas and some others, I think Dave Kraft, were editing their own work. This is always a hideous mistake.
Yeah, that's not good.
And Marvel had done this out of, it became sort of, they had the same problem that Image had, which was that nothing was even remotely ever on time.
Yeah.
And finally, they kept rotating through. Nobody wanted to be the editor-in-chief under those circumstances. And so they kept rotating through people none of whom wanted to be able to say to these people, you can't do that anymore. Jim was not like that.
He's a giant.
Jim was a giant, and he sort of was the first person who had the guts to say, and I think he basically saved Marvel by saying, no, you can't do that anymore. you have to be edited just like real people. And then he hired on additional editors. And he called me, he had seen a play that I'd written. I did an adaptation of Dracula that ran off Broadway for a couple of years. And so he knew I was at least literate on some level, and wanted me to come be an editor. And I had said no. I didn't really want to be an editor because I knew that the editor under these circumstances was going to have to fire people. I didn't really want to do that. And Jim thought I was negotiating and kept offering me more money.
You just didn't want to do it. You're like, I just don't want to.
And so, yeah, that's the only time I've negotiated successfully about anything, because I really didn't want to do it. So anyway, so I'm being an editor, and Chris Claremont comes in and pitches to Jim the idea of Spider-Man meeting Saturday Night Live, which at that time were called the Not Ready for Primetime Players. And it was the original group with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase and Gilda Radner and others. Jim said that's a great idea, and they talked to NBC to see if they would agree to it, and they were readily agreed to it. And Belushi had actually been up to Marvel. I did not meet him that time. Marvel, turns out he was a big Marvel fan, so I'm sure that had something to do with their willingness to do it. Being an editor of Team Up, I said, I'm not going to let anybody else do this but me. So I hired myself to be the penciler on it, and because I knew we would get to go to 30 Rock and watch a rehearsal and maybe meet these people and stuff, and we did. And so I drew it, and that part is that. It was lovely. It was inked by Marie Severin, who, if you don't know Marie Severin's work, she was from the old EC 1950s, was one of her first, when she became famous, and she was famous as a caricaturist doing the first Mad magazine stuff.
Oh, snap.
So anyway, we did the book, and there were some strange parts about it, and the strangest was when we meant to meet the lawyers for NBC, because this was an NBC program, and we had decided that, like Marvel always had these little boxes with the people that were going to be in the Team Up.
Okay, yeah.
But we couldn't figure this one out because it was clearly Spider-Man, and then we decided we would have a picture of Stan, who was Lee, who was in the book. But then we couldn't list all of the other people. There just wasn't room to put all of their faces on it. We didn't want to pick one out and exclude the others, because that would have been pissed somebody off.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different actors, especially there's some big names.
And they're actors, so, it's like, just get my name right, make sure I get a credit. So I suggested, why don't we use the NBC symbol? And everybody went for that, and NBC said it was okay. But we got a call from their lawyer and said, you have to come in so we can talk about how you use the symbol.
Oh, geez.
And we thought, okay. And so we went in, and this lawyer was going over, you must use it just the way it is. You must not do anything to change it. You cannot shrink it. You cannot compress it. You cannot lengthen it. Do you understand? And we said, yeah. He said, I'm not sure you do. You have to realize how important this is to it, that you really can't do any. And he went on about this, on about it. And finally, a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I understand. I'm from Nebraska. And he said, then you know what I'm talking about. And I said, yes, I do. And we were allowed to leave, and got in the hallway, and people said, the other guys from Marvel who were there, Jim and Chris, and Jim said, what just happened? And I said, about 5 years ago, when they first brought out this symbol, which they paid some ad agency probably $100,000 to develop, it was exactly the same as a symbol that a guy named Jimmy Brown had designed, who was a workaday artist at Nebraska Educational Television, and he had designed exactly the same logo several years before NBC designed theirs, and Nebraska sued them. And they finally settled for $1 million remote truck, which is what Nebraska really wanted anyway. And that was what it was about.
Holy crap.
It was one of my best moments.
That is amazing knowledge to have on hand.
Yeah.
Because when are you going to ever use that?
Yeah.
Except that exact moment.
That exact moment. And of course, I had actually worked for this guy, Jim Brown, when I was in Lincoln. I had gone down and done some occasional
So here you were
work.
looking at NBC going, I know something.
So that was kind of cool. After the thing was all done and out, Belushi, which they liked apparently, Belushi invited us all to the opening night party for Animal House. And so we all went over, unfortunately representing Marvel, because...
Thank you, Shooter.
Well, no, Belushi, I think as a matter of just a principle, he invited us if we wanted to go out in the alley and smoke a joint with him. But we all immediately looked at Jim, and Jim said, no, I don't think we can do that. We're here to represent Marvel. It'll get out. Of course, now it would be on social media everywhere.
Nebraska.
So we weren't able to do that. But that's my story.
I love that story so much. It's hands down one of my favorite stories.
You've got to understand that this is my memory of all of this, and probably Jim's would be entirely different.
Actually, that is not true, because I talked to Jim, and I would like to finish the story.
Okay.
So,
Right.
what was fun about this story is Bob was dead on. Ran into Jim at a convention that I was at. I asked him, I was like, hey, so tell me about, like, this happened with you and Bob. Like, do you feel bad that you rejected smoking pot with Belushi? He goes, oh my God, I remember that. And he goes, Bob left for a period of time directly after that happened. You went to the casting party.
Oh, okay.
So right after the casting party, Belushi decides to go back downstairs. Jim tells me that Belushi walks in and he's just like, he's this huge Marvel fan. Okay, like apparently he's next level. He was next level fan. There's this wall that has all these covers, just filled with covers, and he described the story from every cover in the crossovers and all this stuff. And Jim was so enamored by his knowledge of comic books that Belushi was the first and only person to receive every issue mailed to him for life.
Wow.
Like they said, you get free comic books for life. And he of course died shortly after.
That's a really great story. I love that. I did not know that.
To me, it's interesting to be able to give that part of the story to Bob, because when he told me the story, I was blown away. I couldn't handle the fact that he got to hang out with these amazing humans, these creative minds.
Here's the progress on the unicorn.
Someone's gonna have to bid really high to get this, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna bid on this because I want this hanging up in my bedroom.
Add it to the shrine.
You can have it, but then I want that other one back.
Nope, not a chance.
Tradesies.
Okay.
You know what? You can have it in my will.
You want to show what we got so far?
Okay, so we have Kelsey up first with the name. Why am I gangster? Like, my head's on sideways, yo. But I do appreciate the fact that you gave me hair.
Yeah.
I love that. So thank you.
That's my favorite
I
part.
do dig the abstract. It's fun. So the glasses are pretty accurate. The
Gotta get
mustache.
closer. You gotta see the stipple work.
Oh, I didn't see stipple. I didn't. Oh, the little stipples. And then we have the Bob Hall.
Which is amazing. The rings, a sword. It's beautiful.
My horn is so huge, I look like I'm compensating.
Yeah.
Dude, I drew a short little nubby sword.
Mine was big.
So up here, I have mapped out that I'm going to be drawing the Q-tip. It's going to be a little juicy on one end.
Thing just came out of an ear and you're like laced in wax.
What?
You were just born out of an ear. This is yellow, so that's like earwaxy color.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, so your whole drawing just came out. Alrighty. Well, I think we all did wonderful jobs, and I can't wait to see when they're finished. Find us on Facebook, and then make sure to subscribe with that bell so you know when we have people next, and comment who you want to see, and especially if you want Bob back, which is, I'm assuming everyone does already, especially Nate. It's Nate, right?
Warning. Cut. We love you, Bob.
Well, thank you.